Hello. Lewis always had dogs at home. There was Tim, the Irish Terrier, back in Belfast, described at length in Surprised by Joy. He never exactly obeyed you. He sometimes agreed with you. And in Oxford, a very long-lived dog of many nicknames, Mr. Papworth, Baron Papworth, Tykes, Pat. Lewis and his brother Warnie gave their dogs nicknames just like they did people. And then there was Bruce, who died in 1950. There was Poggio and Trottles, and others too. You pick up references in the letters. Along with the cats, Pushkin and Kitty Coo, and other family animals, Peter the Canary, Tommy the black and white mouse, and so on. Lewis often told his brother about the dog's antics in his long letters when Warnie was away from home on army service. The collected letters are littered with details of dog walks. Warnie tells in his journal how the possibility of dogs having souls became a topic for discussion at the Inklings once, that group of friends and academics that met with Lewis a couple of times a week. It was the only topic Warnie thought worth recording for that particular meeting. Lewis himself believed that dogs would be resurrected in heaven. In the chapter on animal suffering in Problem of Pain, he speculates that a pet's identity and its immortality might be tied somehow to its masters or its mistresses, or even to the household as a whole. I wonder if there's a hint of this in The Magician's Nephew, when the horse Strawberry's destiny is drawn into Narnia alongside his master Frank, the cabbie. In his new life, the cabbie becomes a great king, glorious in Narnia, and his horse Strawberry becomes a great winged horse to rival Pegasus. I'll say more about flying horses another time, but let's get back to dogs. Sometimes Lewis would use this dog-master relationship to illustrate a theological point. For example, there's a lengthy passage in a letter to his Belfast friend Arthur Greaves in which he compares our sin and the way God extricates us from it to a dog getting its lead wrapped round a lamppost. The dog wants to go the right way ultimately, but doesn't realise it has to go back round the lamppost to do so. In The Last Battle, the dogs add a lot of joy to the narrative. At first there's anything but joy amongst the poor put-upon creatures of Narnia, oppressed by the evil ape, Shift, and his Calamine masters. You know how sadly your own dog's face can look sometimes. Think of that, and then think of all the faces of those talking beasts, all those honest, humble, bewildered birds, bears, badgers, rabbits, moles, and mice, all far sadder than that. Every tail was down, every whisker drooped. It would have broken your heart with very pity to see their faces. When the god Tash passes by in the woods, Puzzle the donkey shivers the way a dog shivers before a thunderstorm. There's lots of detail based on Lewis's experience of his canine friends. When King Tyrion starts to fight Shift and the Calamines at Stable Hill, things become very grim. But there is one moment of joy. At Tyrion's rallying cry, 15 talking dogs come bounding and barking joyously to the king's side. Lewis spends some time evoking their dogginess. Welcome, welcome, we'll help, help, show us how to help, show us how. It was so lovely it made you want to cry. Following their lead, several other small creatures also came pattering up, squealing with joy. It's a moment of light in a night of darkness. Joyous because it's a sign of hope and loyalty and sheer doggy goodness. Sadly, the attack is a failure and several dogs are left dead or injured. The remaining dogs carry on fighting nobly in the second sortie, but that too fails when the enemy comes back reinforced. But at last, the stable door, which had been a thing of dread to everyone, becomes the way to life. And the dear dogs, it says, the dear dogs enter through it with all the other good creatures and the king and Jill and Eustace and even the stars themselves into the new, most blessed Narnia. And the great joy felt by Eustace drives out of his mind his surprise at some of the more unexpected creatures he sees coming in through that door. There, as the great company move farther up and farther in across that beautiful grassy, flowery country, it says the dogs were still with them. They joined in the conversation, but not very much, because they were too busy racing on ahead and racing back and rushing off to sniff at smells in the grass till they made themselves sneeze. Suddenly they picked up a scent which seemed to excite them very much. They've discovered Emeth, the Calamine, the former enemy. Emeth, by the way, is Hebrew for truth, and Emeth is indeed a lover of truth. The dogs darted on ahead and came back a moment later, running as if their lives depended on it and barking loudly to say that it really was a calamine. Talking dogs, just like the common ones, behave as if they thought whatever they're doing at the moment immensely important. Everyone sits down on the grass to hear Emeth's story, and when the dogs had all had a very noisy drink out of the stream, they all sat down bolt upright, panting, with their tongues hanging out of their heads a little on one side to hear the story. Unfortunately, Emeth makes a bit of a faux pas in the course of this, because he describes how Aslan addressed him by saying, "He called me beloved, me who am but as a dog," which causes some consternation among the dogs. They're not quite sure how to take it. And later on, as they swim up the great waterfall in that new country, what looked funniest was the dogs. During the gallop, they'd not been at all out of breath, but now, as they swarmed and wriggled upwards, there was plenty of spluttering and sneezing among them. That was because they would keep on barking, and every time they barked, they got their mouths and noses full of water. Through the lands west of Narnia, they bark, "Faster, faster!" Lewis's love and observation of dogs runs through all of this, of course. His vision of Narnia, or heaven, in the last battle wouldn't be the same without them. They had a lightness, a humour, even a touch of merriment. It subtly changes the tone of the whole vision. Some of the gladness we see in Narnia can be quite serious, but this heaven is not so solemn.